Picture this. You're holding a high-end streetwear hoodie in one hand and a plate of warm, home-cooked food in the other. Ever wonder where the word economics actually comes from to explain how we value both of these things? Well, it's Greek for oikos, meaning household, and nomos, meaning management. Basically, it's how society manages its massive wish list on a really tight budget. Let's dive right into this explainer and unpack exactly how all of this works. Section 1. Money, Love, and Choices. Understanding what counts. So to truly grasp what economics is and how it's evolved as a social science, think about this for a second. When you or someone else stands in front of a stove, are you actually participating in the economy? Like, is cooking a meal an economic activity? Well, the answer might actually surprise you because it depends entirely on the context. You see, context is literally everything here. If a chef is cooking at a commercial restaurant for paying customers, the cash register is ringing, it's about making, spending, or exchanging money to satisfy wants. That makes it an economic activity. But if a parent cooks that exact same meal for their family purely out of love, that's a non-economic activity. If it's done for social, religious, or parental reasons with absolutely zero money involved, economics traditionally just doesn't count it. As we touched on earlier, this distinction traces all the way back to ancient Greece. Household management is the literal translation of economics. It deals with that fundamental problem every single household, and honestly, every society faces: satisfying unlimited wants with severely limited resources. But how economists actually view this problem, that has changed dramatically over time. Which brings us to Section 2, Adam Smith's Wealth Focus, the classical economist. Traveling back to the 18th century, Adam Smith firmly planted his flag in the idea that economics is entirely a science of wealth. For him, it was all about inquiring into the nature and causes of the wealth of nations. Under Smith's definition, wealth is the absolute focal point. He believed the main objective was examining exactly how people earn and spend wealth, and the causes that lead to its increase, like production and accumulation. He even introduced this concept of the economic man, a person who is keenly aware of their own self-interest and driven primarily by a desire to increase their material gains. Sounds a bit cold, right? Well, there's definitely a flip side to this purely material focus. Critics were quick to point out that Smith's definition had a super narrow view. By defining economics purely as a science of tangible wealth, they argued he completely ignored the higher values of life, things like happiness, love, and affection. Plus, his definition excluded non-material services entirely, and arguably reduced human and social welfare to a secondary place right behind material wealth. Section 3. Marshall and Human Welfare, Adding Humanity to the Equation. Answer: Alfred Marshall. He shifted the spotlight right back onto humanity, insisting that while economics is a study of wealth on one side, the more important side is the study of man. He firmly believed that mankind occupies the central place in this study, not just the coins clinking in their pockets. Marshall focused his definition on what he called the ordinary business of life. This means the day-to-day income earning and spending activities we all do. He emphasized that securing material requisites, basic things like food, clothing, and shelter, is an absolute requirement for our well-being before we can even begin to think about other needs. But, just like Smith, Marshall still excluded activities that couldn't be measured in terms of money. And as you might guess, Marshall's definition wasn't perfect either. Critics argued his distinction between economic and non-economic activities was pretty impractical, since almost all human activities have some economic aspect. More importantly, he had this materialistic bias that excluded the vital, non-material services of people like doctors, lawyers, and teachers. Plus, let's be real, material welfare is totally subjective. It changes depending on the time, the place, and the individual. All of this dissatisfaction paved the way for our next major shift. Section 4. Robbins and Absolute Scarcity, the Problem of Choice. So, Lionel Robbins steps in with a completely different perspective. The absolutely crucial point Robbins introduces here is that the root cause of all economic problems isn't just wealth, and it isn't just welfare. It's scarcity. Robbins' framework builds super logically, step by step. Step 1, our ends, meaning our wants, are endless. The second want is satisfied, another one crops up. Step 2, our means, our resources like land, labor, and capital are scarce and limited. Step 3, those limited resources have alternative uses. You can use a piece of land to grow wheat, or you can use it to build a factory, but you can't do both at the same time. Which leads us to Step 4. Choice. Society is constantly forced to make decisions on how to allocate these scarce resources based on their relative importance. Now, Robbins gave us a brilliant, universal framework applicable to literally every economy. Whether it's a traditional barter economy, a modern capitalist society, or even a single person stranded on a desert island. It acts as a positive science, totally neutral on what ends we should pursue. But critics argued his view was too static. It assumed resources are fixed and ignored the dynamic reality that resources can actually grow over time. It also completely sidelined massive macroeconomic problems like unemployment and economic instability. Moving on to Section 5, Samuelson and Economic Growth, a Dynamic Approach. Paul Samuelson took Robbins' concept of scarcity and choice and injected a vital, long-term perspective into it. He argued that it's really about how society chooses to employ these scarce resources to produce commodities over time and distribute them for consumption, either right now or in the future. Samuelson's growth-oriented definition gave us a highly comprehensive view. By combining Marshall's focus on welfare with Robbins' focus on scarcity and choice, Samuelson created a dynamic, future-oriented framework. He recognized that our wants aren't static, they grow. But crucially, our productive resources and technologies also expand to meet those growing wants. This finally brought the concept of economic growth firmly into the spotlight. Which brings us to Section 6, Micro versus Macroeconomics, the two lenses of modern economics. Today, the distinction between these two lenses is pretty clear. Microeconomics zeroes in on the behavior of individual units. Think individual households, firms, and specific industries. Its basic parameter is price, and it focuses heavily on individual demand and supply. Macroeconomics, on the flip side, zooms all the way out to look at the functioning of the economy as a whole. Its basic parameter is national income, and it deals with much broader aggregates like total employment and general price levels. But don't let that division fool you. As Professor Samuelson rightly pointed out, there is really no opposition between the two. They are completely complementary and interdependent. You absolutely need microeconomics to figure out the optimal allocation of resources at the ground level, and you definitely need macroeconomics to ensure the full utilization of those productive resources at a national level. Honestly, you're less than half educated in the subject if you only understand one. Both lenses are vital to understanding how our world works. But remember what we talked about at the very beginning? Economics ultimately only tracks the cash side of human effort, the scarce resources used to generate wealth and welfare. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought based on everything we've covered today. Drop a comment below. Is studying for your exam an economic or a non-economic activity? Let us know what you think, and let's keep this fascinating conversation going.